Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Siegel, and I wanted to welcome you all to our webinar today, Making a Digital Leap. Before we get started, I wanted to review a few operational points, and then I'll introduce our speakers. The session today will run about 30 to 40 minutes long, and then we'll have Q&A. For those of you who are new to Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you will see three icons: a chat icon, a raise your hand, and a Q&A. Please use the Q&A icon to submit your questions as you think of them. We'll cover them at the end of today's session. We will do our best to get to all the items, but if we're not able to get to yours, we'll follow up with you offline. If you have any technical difficulties during this webinar, please use the raise the hand function and a member of the PBI team will be in touch with you. So now I'll do some introductions. Josh O'Brien from Strategic Group. Josh, do you want to give a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Josh O'Brien. I work at the Strategic Investment Group. We're an outsourced CIO. I've been with the firm for about 14 years. One of my primary responsibilities is, I guess it relates to what we're going to talk about today, has been building better tools and looking at our data infrastructure and reporting infrastructure for the investment team, for our clients. So that's sort of led us to where we are today and what we'll talk about.
Great, thank you. Michael Fastert, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Mike Fastert. I'm the COO and CLO of the Tiedemann Investment Group. We are approximately a $6 billion asset alternative investment firm that runs the gamut of strategies between merger arb event driven, structured credit, long short equity, and private credit direct lending. As such, we're intimately involved at all aspects of our organization and strategy, with system deployment and infrastructure deployment, making sure that our investors have the best tools, to evaluate our performance and, keeping our investors, apprised of all the happenings with their portfolios at TIG. So hopefully I can add to the perspective of the panel.
Great. And Chris Blackley, the CTO for PortfolioBi.
Hi, everyone. Chris Blackley. As Jerry mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for PortfolioBi. About 20 years of experience building various financial products from high-end, high-volume, multi-strat solutions for firms, all the way down to some things that are a little more boutique for smaller firms. At PortfolioBi, I oversee not just the technology itself that runs our firm, but also the product and our product development group.
Great, thank you. And by way of background, again, my name is Jeremy Siegel. I'm the CEO of PortfolioBi. I've been with PortfolioBi/Lux for 2 years. Prior to that, I was at Credit Suisse, and I ran the prime brokerage consulting team for about 14 years, working with new and existing buy-side clients, helping them with operational best practices. Again, I want to welcome you all to the webinar today, and I hope everyone's families and friends are healthy. For the first question, I just want to reach out. Well, actually, let me give a little bit of background about PortfolioBi. So PortfolioBi is a combination of both Lux FTS, which was a EDM cloud-based data warehouse and reporting platform, primarily first focused on Advent Geneva reporting, and then quickly branched out into P&L reporting, treasury-based reporting, performance and attribution, and pretty much front to back reporting for the buy side. We recently merged with the North Point business spun out of ACA, which is a multi-asset class OMS, PMS, as well as Security Master, Price Master, and EDM. And we've merged the two companies together. We actually had an official press release of the merger being complete just this morning, but the companies have been operating together for 3 months. Combined, we have about 60 plus employees. Almost everyone's based in New York, including all of the development. And when it comes to the client side, we have combined about 50 plus licensed clients, but then working with, on the consulting side, 150 plus. The company is backed by the Credit Suisse Next 2 fund. And we can go to the next slide. So it's one solution. Again, we can work front to back for clients on the buy side. We have a lot of expertise from the employee side of having worked at hedge funds, of having worked in this space for much of our careers. So we have not just the technology, but the people on the consulting side helping put together a full solution, not just a product. Next slide. So we're going to start talking about the cloud today, and I was going to have Chris just start talking about why the cloud, where it's coming, and just give us a brief understanding of the deployment strategies. People use a lot of terminology. It's a very fast-moving space where, just a few years ago, people wanted everything in their own server rooms, and now everything is pushing to the cloud. Chris, maybe you can give us a little bit of an update on the different terminology and where we are today.
Sure. So why don't we start with the private cloud? So the private cloud started as just running a bunch of servers in really an in-house data center. At that time, when those were first running, they're running on a VMware, and most people didn't even call it a private cloud. In fact, I had been running systems in former shops, and we actually have one currently as well. But we've been running this now for many, many years. It's something that a lot of folks are pretty familiar with. And what grew from there on the private cloud was a hosted option as well. So there are various firms that offer the ability to host your private cloud for you. So what that means is your hardware is procured by them, they install it, they manage that. But in the end, you're, as an owner of this, you have to manage your hardware, you deploy your operating systems, you have to make sure you patch them and handle all your software deployments. All these things are your responsibility to manage yourself. Now, the hybrid cloud kind of grew from this, right? With the onset of AWS and now Azure and Google, there are several others. Most of the times in our space, we only hear about Azure and AWS. But these things are allowed us to really venture up into the public cloud, but still keep a lot of processing and control of the things that we've invested in for many, many years, running in our own data centers. So examples of this would be, you've reached a capacity in your data center, right? What do you do? Are you really going to add another data center, or are you going to, look at offloading some of that workload into the public cloud? So that's an option that many people have started with. There's also just new technologies. So the new technologies that have been coming out in the public cloud have been just amazing. So the transformation over the last several years and the innovation has been just awesome. We're very excited to have that opportunity. What that allows us to do is take advantage of some of those technologies without making a full investment up front. So Azure, AWS, these things have been amazing for us to really be able to start taking advantage of the investments that those firms have been doing. Now they have a massive investment, right? They can add hardware on the fly. I've read dozens of articles about these firms to add their over the last couple months in response to working remotely. And this is something that at their scale they can do much quicker than most other firms. There's really kind of three pieces that we look at when we're talking about, and this is a high level, where we're looking at what's available from the public cloud. So that's IaaS, right? So it's infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service, it's really just a VM. You can think about it as your server. Instead of running on your data center, you're running it up in the public cloud. There's the platform as a service. So platform as a service allows you to offload the next kind of branch of work, which could be things like databases, messaging systems. These are things that we use quite extensively in our own environment, both internally and for our clients. And the expertise, right, to install, configure, update, we offload that to the experts who actually did the technology themselves. And then the third is FaaS, or it's called serverless. Basically, what that allows you to do on the AWS side, they call it the AWS Lambda, and then on Azure, you have Azure Functions. This is something that personally I'm very interested in. We've done some work with this already, and I think this is a really interesting growth area for firms looking to harness some of the capabilities and really controlling cost at the same time.
We're going to do a quick survey. If everybody, the participants, want to talk about what kind of cloud you have on premise, and we can share some of the results after. But we're trying to get an idea of those dialing in. Are you still on a private cloud? Are you moving to the public cloud? Are you not sure? You know, please feel free to vote. Thank you, Chris. So I wanted to kind of move to the client side and talk to Michael, just kind of get an idea. Michael, where are you on Tiedemann's journey to the cloud? So I think of this as a journey. This is not a quick migration, and it's a long-term project. Where are you on your journey at this point?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeremy. I think the journey is winding and rapidly evolving, and I think you're probably going to see more rapid evolution, you know, as a result of the pandemic and people not necessarily being able to access their building, their on-premise servers, their BCP site, etc. So we started our sort of journey, if you will, I would say, you know, 5 to 6 years ago. And, you know, think about the questions that we were asking at that point. You know, if I go to the cloud, would my data be safe? Would there be significant downtime that impacts my ability to run my organization? Would investors be okay on ODD? Would they be scared that their information might be lying somewhere else? Would my, you know, if I was in a commingled server, you know, on subpoena from nothing to do with our organization, would my information somehow be caught up in, you know, sort of an overall governmental organization? These were all things we asked and drove a lot of the on-premise deployment. Think about 5 years ago, even at the application level, you were deploying servers to service those applications, you know, in your on-premise site, you know, your storage area network and whatnot. And, you know, we started to dip our toe with applications and started to have our applications hosted in a cloud. Then, you know, 4 years ago, maybe 3.5, we did a lot of work into managed service private cloud. We ended up going that route. You know, the reason we went that route at the time, you know, I would say we were sort of a middle of the road adopter. Certainly people were doing it before us, and certainly people will come after us. We did it for cost, which, you know, we found to be somewhat net neutral. We did it for scalability, and we did it for security. Maybe the third one, probably most of all, maybe number two. You know, as I referenced in my introduction, we serve a lot of different strategies. Those strategies have different data needs from time to time. They have different server needs from time to time. We wanted to make sure we were able to scale up an environment to serve any particular manager we brought on board. So that was very important to us, agnostic of cost. Then our CTO and CISO at the time, and, you know, I think most hedge funds are in this demographic, you just don't have a massive security staff, you know, to do the constant patching, to deploy all the bells and whistles that, you know, a managed service private cloud might have. And at that point, we decided the cybersecurity posture would be much better and much more easily handled when we went to that private cloud. So that was a 3.5 year ago migration. About 6 months ago, we've now started our deployment into public cloud. And, you know, I would look at this more of a, you know, that deployment to be hybrid. You know, for a lot of those same reasons, it's scalability, as Chris was saying. You know, the tools on Azure or AWS are enormous at this point. As we get into more data-driven hedge funds that have a lot more usage for, you know, massive storage needs, we see the, you know, the need to really deploy more than we can do on-prem, more than we can do on a private cloud. And the dynamic management of that public cloud is second to none at this point. You know, basically you log into the Azure portal and you can dynamically manage your servers and really save, you know, a lot of money, you know, turning servers off when you don't need it, turning servers on when you need it, when you have different particular needs, whether it's your Citrix environment or otherwise. The dynamic management around that and the security around that really tipped the scale for us. You know, people were always worried, yes, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, huge targets, but think about the resources they have to deploy to fend off those cyber attacks, and that's where we got comfortable. Investors have been comfortable, and that really aided in our journey. As we've gone through, ODDs in our evolution with the cloud, we've seen nothing but receptiveness. I think we'll get to a little bit of this later, but that's really aided, how we've gone about doing it because we had very supportive investors.
Michael, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Josh, where are you on Strategic's journey to the cloud?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll talk about just maybe just a little bit going back, just our sort of maybe data journey, I'll call it as well, and how that drives some of this. So if we look back, probably around the same time frame as Mike was talking about, probably about 5 years ago, we recognized that we were in a situation where a lot of data was sort of siloed across the organization in different groups. Data governance issues. Just access to information by users was not what we would want at an organizational level, and so that really drove a lot of the change to get where we are today. Where we are today is we're from a cloud-based perspective, we have our servers on a private cloud. We expect to be transitioning off that private cloud at some point in the future, and we can talk about some of the reasons in the second. And in terms of, at the time, the goal was really, as I mentioned, just empowering a lot of the users across the organization. If you wanted data back then, you had to go to somebody and say, hey, could you get it out of this system or this application? Certain users didn't, know how to access the data or applications, and we wanted to be able to push it out in a way that was much easier for the average user. The initial benefits, I would say, were just, immediately better reporting. Initial benefits of consolidating data, getting that into a single warehouse, which we did with Northpoint, now PortfolioBi. But better reporting, APIs to be able to, certain different types of users to access information, either an API into Excel or for more technical users to be able to programmatically access information. So then I would say next stage is stage 2, more where we are today. And that's been really trying to take, I thought about that first stage as really the foundational stage. And stage 2 is now reaping some of the benefits of the work that was done in that stage 1. So some of the things we've done recently, we've built a web-based tool for our investment team. We did that with the PortfolioBi team. And so that's, again, really just being able to access that information that we have and push it out to different users. And then consolidating a lot of the reporting now across the organization, but we recognize the need to move that all back into a single web-based reporting tool so that people can have a single home to go find their information. And so then, stage 3, I would say, is then in terms of moving over off the private cloud into a public cloud or more of a hybrid solution. And really a lot of the benefits there, what we're trying to achieve are the things that Mike was talking about and others have mentioned. Better security, that's the security situation in some ways has flipped itself on its head from how it was viewed years ago. Management of I don't want to say cost reduction, because as Mike said, it may not necessarily materialize, but maybe, overall cost management, I would say. And then just access to scalability, access to better tools, all these reasons. So, it's pretty consistent themes to what Mike was talking about. That's in our future plans. I will say it's funny because we're dealing with a situation today. We've had fantastic. The work from home situation has worked very well with the private cloud, but we've had an interruption starting yesterday with our ISP, and we're sort of it's escalating these conversations about moving over to the public cloud already today. So it was good timing for the webinar.
Interesting. And Michael, what do you think? Thank you, Josh. Michael, what do you think about just the working from home recently? Do you think that's pushing the agenda faster, or is it still on same timeline?
No, I do. I think it's going to definitely push the agenda faster. As I was saying, buildings haven't been accessible potentially. Employees haven't been as mobile. It's been difficult to get certain vendors, in order to service the various aspects of your infrastructure. And going further, we are remote, and remote presents challenges. I think the industry has handled it very well. I think a lot of that is because there's been so much adoption of cloud. But I think you're going to continue to see that evolve, right? To Josh's point, part of the reason they deployed to cloud was data management and data dissemination. Do you have the proper tools in place? And without that sort of cloud deployment, it's harder. I mean, think about the tools we have at our disposal now, whether it's PortfolioBi or others, and how you disseminate information from a single source data warehouse. With people scattered, potentially all over the country, you sort of need that collated approach, and it's hard just to rely on a single division within your company to produce all that reporting. So any cloud-based system is going to create a huge advantage. It allows more dynamic use across your entire firm. And I think Josh spoke very well to this point, whether it's investment team, whether it's investor relations, whether it's accounting and operation, whether it's legal and compliance. All of these tools really go up to a system that is most robust in a cloud-based environment. And we're all scattered and we just don't communicate as much and not quite as well, even though it feels like we do, we probably don't. I think it's really important. I think that's why you'll see this be a huge accelerator into a more streamlined data management and infrastructure management environment for hedge funds.
Thank you. Michael, you mentioned just the different business units that would benefit. Who's leading the charge at your organization? And then Josh, for you as well, who's leading the charge at your organizations to push this forward? Is it being led by the front office or is it being led more by the business side?
It's funny, Jeremy, we always, at our firm, the business side will generally lead that. And I think that's very strategy dependent. And I think that is unique to your particular portfolio manager. How much they've adopted, alternative data, how much they've adopted sort of robotic processing to help them in their investment tools. So we tend to lead this from the business side. And once we present those use cases to the portfolio managers, then we see, a creep more from the portfolio managers into utilizing more of this technology. While they always sort of want more data, want to see how to harness it, you sort of have to present use cases on how it's worked on things that they don't hold near and dear, because everybody's scared to change their thought process and everybody's scared to change, how they've done things for so many years. So I think it's important to, certainly work with your front office in getting them the tools and the data they need. But it's also important, in other parts of your organization, deploy AI where you can, deploy alternative data when you can, deploy automation, show your front office that you can make things faster and more accurate, whether it's the production of NAV, whether it's processing a corporate action. I think it's important for both parts of the organization to really have a hand in leading that environment.
Great. And Josh, who's leading the charge at your environment?
Yeah, it's pretty much a similar story to what Mike was talking about. I think it's been mostly led by the business side. Some examples of that. I mean, I'm really sort of echoing a lot of Mike's comments, but a lot of times what has happened is that the business side has pushed for this migration into the data warehouse, and then as soon as various users realize the benefits of that, they very quickly get excited about it and then start asking new questions and want new information. So the example that I mentioned earlier, I mean, there's always building a web-based front office tool for our investment team so that it moves them all under the same platform. They'd had disparate platforms in the past, and initially maybe wanting it, but a little bit of skeptical of the adoption and the change. But then as soon as they realize some of the benefits of this and the power that comes with that, things quickly change. You want new information, new report to put together. We can do that very quickly now, and we can get it to you any way you'd like. We could drop it into your mailbox. We could drop it into a folder. A lot of these tools that are available, just that they weren't aware of, and they're sort of busy focusing on managing the portfolio. But when they realize the power of these systems and the power of these change, they start pushing in the same direction, I would say.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Josh. I think, Chris, you had some questions for Josh or Michael.
Yeah. So, Mike, I guess I'll start with you. What are you hearing from your IT staff? Are they also, are they engaged, interested in this? Are they feeling hesitant? Maybe a follow-on question would be, what do you think about, providing them with, the help that they need to make the migration if they're really looking to take advantage of some of these newer technologies?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Chris. And I think certainly 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you had IT staffs that were somewhat skeptical about the deployment of these various cloud technologies. Would it put them out of a job? Would it reduce their job? I think it's changed their job, and we've seen a lot of very positive reception from our IT staff, both on the infrastructure side and on the system side. I think the system side is a little more obvious. The system side, this is just giving them more tools to deploy what they're interested in deploying. A really big focus for us over the past couple of years, and it's been slow because it's a rigorous approach. And, I touched on it by saying, portfolio managers are always hesitant, but we want to make our technology systems more front office facing. And that's a lot more interesting to your IT staff than, just turning on an OMS, making sure it works, making sure the trade files get sent out. So our system staff is really engaged and been really happy about the new projects around data and data management, that we've embarked on. So that's absolutely been a net positive. And I've said multiple times before, with the advent of outsourcing, and everybody has a different opinion on it, I think it's a mix of internal staff, outsourcing, and automation that really makes you an efficient environment. But the one place that I would like to emphasize hiring at TIG is really in that technology arena. I do think that's the future, and I think a lot of the platforms that are out there, PortfolioBi and others, are really allowing technology systems deployment to really take that next step in both their careers and their interest level. It's interesting to help the front office. You feel like you're driving performance rather than just driving a back office process, and that's very valuable. From an infrastructure side, the reception's also been good. I think our CTO was somewhat hesitant at first, and I wanted to make sure that it was his decision, and he presented to senior management, and this is what he recommended. And what he's been able to do around that deployment, what it's freed him up from, changing out a server in the server room has been really impressive. I'm impressed every day at the cyber environment that he's been able to create in conjunction with our service providers. And it's really given him a new aspect to his career. He went and got his CISO certification. So we've really seen, if you're willing to change and you're willing to go to that next level as someone in an IT type working environment, I think the opportunities are endless. And in my opinion, it will never end, because I think that's a mistake, internal IT staff. I think they're invaluable, and I think you need them on a day-to-day basis to drive your business.
Great, that's helpful. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Mike, yeah. I appreciate, I certainly hate hearing you say that. Well, believe me.
Yeah, sure. From our perspective, similar story. I mean, really just, I would say, in many ways an evolution. That, there's an example I always think of, because we had a guy who was an internal developer, but he knew our data in and out, and was involved in the data migration effort. And now he's really, he's a report building sort of data owner for the investment team. And so that transition from just sort of working back and code to understanding, okay, well, we need to get this new information out, how can we get this report put together, and knowing where all the data lies, and being able to do that. So it's the IT team is very integral to this process. The shift toward that type of person who can really support the investment team, support the front office, know where the data is, has been part of the journey.
Great. Question on the due diligence process. You'll forgive me, there's an ice cream truck going around my neighborhood, and it's right outside my house. So great timing. My neighbors are loving it. One of the benefits of working from home. When it comes to the due diligence process, you can't make this stuff up. When it comes to the due diligence process, a lot of the decisions, things you're thinking about, impacts the due diligence, regulatory. You're never making decisions just for yourself. You're thinking about your partners, your investors. How is the due diligence process going on the cloud? Are they very check the box questions? Are they in detail? How are you getting them comfortable with the security? Is it just that you're using a service provider? Are you checking logs alongside, kind of go into a little bit of that detail. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, it comes up for sure, Jeremy. Every institutional ODD certainly asks about your technology. It's a good idea to have prepared, the process you went through to pick that technology. Very popular questionnaire right now is the ATEC AMA vendor due diligence questionnaire. And that gives you a lot of information and data about what the vendor you select is doing, how they're protecting your data, and how investors can feel secure that their data, or PII, is not being disseminated across a broader universe. It's important to make sure you have a vendor due diligence process in place, whether that's on-site visits, whether that's a know your third-party provider type, internet environment, or questionnaire that you update on an ongoing basis. Process is important, and then I think your reasons for doing it are important too. Is your reason for doing it just cutting costs? It shouldn't be. You should be able to explain to investors as to why this helps them. We receive multiple different questions from investors that are unique and data driven on a monthly basis. Present the fact that you can get that information to them more accurately, quicker. That's very helpful. So I think it's really important to have your rationale as to why you pick these data providers and how they're protecting their data. When we go ahead and present that to our ODD teams that are coming in at least on an annual basis from institutions, we've found a very positive reception. They're happy with whether it's a cloud-based application, whether it's an infrastructure, as long as you're monitoring it, as long as you have controls in place to make sure that that vendor is operating properly or that infrastructure provider is protecting your data and you have an active engagement with them. They look at it positively. They look at it positively from a cyber perspective and so on and so forth. And, going past just investors, regulators have a stake too, whether it's the NFA, whether it's the SEC, both have, made pronouncements and had sweep exams around cybersecurity. Is the provider you picked, is that making sure that your cybersecurity posture is up to snuff? Because they're going to want to know as well. Are you going ahead and getting third-party risk assessments with respect to your environment? That's important. Investors and regulators are going to want to know that. Are you having a gap analysis and risk analysis? If you're doing all of these things, the reception from our experience has been very positive, and I think that's an important step to, bring the whole hedge fund universe, into that cloud environment.
Great. And Josh, what are your perspectives on that?
Maybe just comment on it from an investor standpoint. Since we're R&O CIO, we invest with a lot of third-party managers, and obviously the bar is pretty high within the investment industry for security, probably compared to the average firm. Cybersecurity, especially being mandated even by the SEC. So, we think about it from a security standpoint. We put all of any firm that we're going to invest into a very rigorous cybersecurity review. In terms of the server location, cloud. It comes down to security again. I used the analogy before. I've gone to our servers, and is there a guy sitting outside, with a gun and a locked door? Is that going to keep you safe from some of the threats that exist today? And probably not. In reality, that's not really where the primary risks lie. So it comes down to security from an investor standpoint, and making sure that you understand you have a strategy around that, and some of the examples that Mike mentioned in terms of how you would manage that process.
Great. We have about 10 minutes left. I want to kind of cover a little bit about machine learning and some of the smart cloud applications, and then get to Q&A. I did want to get to data governance, but I think we'll make that a separate webinar, as it's a whole topic in itself. And I wanted to kind of keep on time. So on the AI machine learning, we hear a lot about it. We have it in our homes with Alexa and Google. And is it really just buzzwords? Are you guys using it in your organization? Do you see value in it? And, where are you seeing those kind of questions again on from the investor side? So, and Chris, if you have any comments you want to throw in as well on the topic, I'll give it a jump ball to anybody that wants to kind of kick it off.
Josh, they always let me start. You want to start this one?
It's fine. I can just when you start, I can just say, yeah, exactly what Mike said. A lot easier. No, go ahead. It's a good ebb and flow. So you can go ahead.
Yeah. So baby steps, Jeremy. Getting to the point where you're using AI on investment decisions on a regular basis. Obviously, there's some funds out there that do that, and there's an emerging small segment of the investing universe that does it. I think it's going to be hard to implement across the board in the very near future. And with that, we've tried to take baby steps. So we've started to investigate and utilize some robotic processing in the back office. We're hoping to use that as a use case to show portfolio managers the benefit, and not to change their decision-making process, but to augment it. There's nothing wrong with having another data point as you make an investment decision. At TIG, we're very sensitive to attracting other managers and other strategies onto our platform. So I referred to it earlier, but we've had a stated push to make our technology team more front office facing, and having that be more of something that attracts managers to TIG. Hey, we have a technology platform that incorporates alternative data. It incorporates machine learning to a certain extent. Come join us, and you'll be able to access that, and you'll be able to augment your investment decisions, hopefully. Not turn that investment decision over by any stretch, but help it along its way. So we'll see. I think it's a very important development for the industry. I think it will continue to develop. I don't know if there's any stopping it, but it'll be slow. I don't think it's an immediate impact. You wonder, and Josh can have a comment on this, you wonder how underlying investors are going to want to see that, and how those AI sort of led decisions are vetted, how much back testing you're doing around that. What are you doing in order to make sure that you're not going to go off the rails with something outside of some sort of human intervention? So right now we're starting with back office processes and moving towards that front office solution to the extent that managers want it. And I think a large portion don't necessarily want it yet.
That's a really good point, Michael, in the sense of leading versus coming in on the back end versus pushing it on the front end, what investors want. Josh, are you seeing funds promote AI and machine learning on the alpha generating side, or is it much more of a back office operational alternative data enhancing the process?
Yeah, we do have a number of managers that we work with that that say that they deploy this in their investment team. I will say that these are, generally speaking, very large asset managers who have the resources. And I think it's been more of a decision augmentation more than a standalone sort of AI decision-making tool. And I think that's obviously the right mix at best. So it's a little hard sometimes to parse out, the sales side of AI or machine learning from the reality. I think, I've seen many instances where products are being pushed and they're saying AI and machine learning, and you thinking that, that's sort of, it's neat, but it's not, it's a human programmed the computer to do something. So I'm not sure that, if it really moves into that category. And most of what we've done internally is along those lines of called more robotics, data scraping. We have a lot of information that we use that comes in via statements, capital account statements, PDFs. We gather exposures and so forth. And so we've worked with either mostly some third parties to automate the input of that information, which I don't know really qualifies as either AI or machine learning, probably more robotics and but data scraping tools. And those are all been great in improving our operations, but it's been more back office focus, reconciliation tools.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. So we only have about 4 minutes left, and I want to get to some Q&A. But while we're doing that, maybe Chris, you could just talk about some of the smart cloud applications and what's coming in the future and things that we can look forward to.
Sure. Let me just touch on one very, very briefly, kind of leads in off of some of the things that Mike, both you and Josh were talking about. So we took a look at how we could go ahead and integrate the AI and ML capabilities in our system. Looked about 18 months ago, kicked off a project to do that, to improve our reconciliation engine. And it took a lot of work. It was a lot of development, like you said, right? And now I'm going to fast forward, to, earlier this year. We were taking a look at something that's built in directly into Azure. We had a couple different things that we're looking at, but one in particular was around the query optimization that's offered in their database, in the SQL databases. So we get an email, my report's slow. As IT folks, we love getting it's slow. So now we're trying to, where's it slow? What happened? And we're kind of trying to fill in the blanks here, chasing this thing down. And what was running on the back end is basically an analysis of the server, and it's recommending that indexes are created. Normally, right, if we didn't have something doing this, we'd have to go through this whole process. We'd have to figure out, what's slow, take a look at the, the database, parse all this stuff down, write, if we do figure out it is an index of some kind that's wrong, we'd have to write the code to create the index. We'd have to test it. We'd have to deploy it. We have to verify it. And in this new offering, they actually have the ability to not only find the issue, suggest the issue, give you an estimate of the query improvement as a result of enacting this thing, creating the code so you can have an option of either deploying it automatically or deploying it at your discretion. And then it even tests it afterwards to make sure that the results netted a net positive impact. And to me, I mean, looking at speed, not having to do all that debugging, not even write the code and deploy it all. I mean, that stuff is great. And in terms of delivering to a client, that's really where we want to be. We want to take advantage of these. This is a platform as a service option. We want to take advantage of these where we can, and be able to turn around enhancements quicker, more effectively, and be able to actually show, demonstrate that they worked the way we expected them to.
Chris, we got a question from the audience about end user data and how they can actually access the data and what tools are out there. Mike, Josh, what are you guys thinking about to getting your users better access to the data? People use Microsoft Excel, download spreadsheets. What's the future hold there?
Well, I could start with that one. So with the various tools out there now, you're obviously not just tied to Excel. Excel is still going to be used for doing some investigation work, prototyping, that type of thing. But the options now, loading this data into a centralized repository, putting the BI component on top of that, whether it's a Power BI, whether it's a Tableau, those are the two that we feel we see most often. And then, of course, we have our own products to handle that stuff as well for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. Our chief information officer at our firm has always liked to say, and he's said it for years, he would like to deinstall Excel from every workstation at our firm. And a lot of it's for this reason is, Excel can go wrong. It's dependent on the data source. It's dependent on a lot of factors, and that can proliferate throughout your organization and potentially get some wrong answers. So it's that golden source of data. It's that data warehouse that we all strive for. And then putting, as Chris was saying, some sort of product on top of that to create that data visualization. And there are a lot of them out there right now, including the one we use from you all, that are extremely helpful. It allows your organization to access it rather than just your IT staff that knows SQL. It eliminates a large, potential bottleneck in the organization. We all have only so many SQL database experts and programmers. And these visualization tools really allow everyone from front office down to access and manipulate one single source of data for consistency and accuracy and speed of reporting to all of your investors and your teams.
So thank you. We only have like a minute or two left, and we got a question about emerging technologies and how that's helping the transformation, especially in an area where we have fee compression. We only have about a minute left. In the meantime, before you start answering, I want to just thank everybody for attending. If we do cut out, again, we're going to have more sessions, and we're happy to follow up offline for any questions. But if you guys want to kind of talk about emerging technologies.
I'll just make a very quick comment there, and a little plug maybe for PortfolioBi in the as I'm saying that, which is for our relationship with PortfolioBi and formerly Northpoint is one where we're not using it just as a product. We really have a team of experts, and so emerging technologies we rely on them, and they very often do. In fact, this new application that we've been building with them, a web-based application, really to understand the landscape, understand how these new tools can be deployed, and then pushing them out either through their application or bringing them up to us and having discussions about how we can deploy them internally. And so that's really been a big benefit to our organization, to bring in that level of expertise and somebody who understands what's developing and how the landscape's changing, because it's obviously very, very rapid.
Yeah, I totally agree with Josh on that. Vendors, technology vendors are your partners at this point. They're an extension of your business. To the point of the question, margin compression is definitely a reality we face in the industry. I think that's why it makes these emerging technologies and your technology vendors even more important, because you can scale through others, and maybe a licensing fee or a cost, which means you don't necessarily have to hire 5 developers in-house in order to do this. So I think margin compression actually drives it to a certain extent, and why we have to lean on all of our vendors to make sure that we are in partnership with them. We do develop with them, like Josh was saying, and so we can better service our investors. So I think it's a great topical question, and one that's important to think on.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank Mike, Josh, and Chris for giving us their time and thoughts. And I want to wish everybody a happy, healthy summer. And again, we want to have another follow-up on data governance. And if there are other topics you guys want to learn about, please forward them our way. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Take care, guys.